excited to be here today at Agnes Scott. Today I just spoke on an environmental justice panel, and we really talked about environmental justice, climate change, and how you can be an activist in your own community. So I'm honored to be here today. We're going to go inside, talk a little bit, talk about how music and sustainability kind of meet each other. So yeah, let's get inside. I like to call these types of talks, because talk is like talk, like a TED talk. I kind of prefer the word conversation, which is what we're doing. And so I call it conservation conversations. Your perspective inspires change. I'm a very principle-driven person. I believe in values, and I think that really speaking to all of our conversation this whole time, our society has just kind of taint what it means to value things in the physical, but also like what that looks like spiritually and mentally, and how do you share that with people? How do you implement that in music? How do you implement that in conversation? So that's why I call it conservation conversations. But like I told y'all before, my name is Gabriella. I go by Guitar Gabby on stage. I'm gonna sit down here. And I do a lot of work in the music space, in the conservation space as a consultant, and really just bringing community back down together through music and through arts. So when you mention arts, I think that's really cool, and we need art. And to your point, we mimic everything in society through the lens of art. Next slide. So I kind of think I see environmental justice and climate change as a very big thing and a really big topic in conversation. And like I mentioned, I'm a very principle-driven and strategic person, so I extract principles from things, look for consistencies, and to me, that is the strategy. I feel like sometimes it's hard for us to envision what a strategy looks like in our everyday lives. We don't see strategic planning as something that we do like literally every day, and how we communicate with people, how we meet people. So I extracted the principles that I see through environmental justice, and I kind of want to talk about what that looks like from my perspective being the first thing. And it is defined as the capacity to view things in their true relations or relative importance, or the interrelation in which a subject or its parts are mentally viewed. And that speaks, I think sometimes when we talk about principles and perspective and how that plays into our everyday lives, it's not always as complicated as we make it. So for me, like I mentioned before, when I was in my freshman year at Spelman, I really and still am very passionate about guitar and music, but I also am very passionate about conservation and environmental science. So coming up in the South as a young Black girl, also being in environments where on both sides people told me I couldn't or could do certain things, I kind of saw that as a box. And I had to really take a step back and like figure out myself, what does activism look like in my own way? How am I an activist in conservation? How can I use music? How can I use guitar, the skills and things that I'm passionate about, to kind of create that connection? So this first picture right here was a really big moment. I can't say the biggest, but it's been one of the biggest highlights of my career so far. And this was at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I opened up for Usher and Maroon 5 at the Beloved Benefit. And it was such a monumental experience, because to me, it wasn't just playing guitar on stage to a song and everyone was jamming. To me, it was an opportunity to physically and mentally and spiritually in my aura show people what's important to me, and hopefully connect with people in the audience by holding a guitar. And then the second picture, speaking about how activism and perspective kind of joined together into the music piece. That second picture is from the Women's March. I think that was in 2020. I think it was 2020, right at the start of the when did our pandemic start? Was that 2020? I don't even. 2019-ish? Something like that?
It was 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we was outside for this one. And this was a really big moment because, again, using music as a tool to connect people and to like ignite and empower people to get active about something, to get passionate and inspire action and change. So that was a really exciting moment, just to be able to use guitar and use music as a way to ignite people. And then that picture all the way up on the far right is one of my first jobs. Actually, When I was working at Green and Youth Foundation, I got a job at the Chattahoochee Nature Center as a naturalist. And I loved that job really for only two reasons. One of those reasons was I got to be outdoors. And two, I got to use my guitar to teach kids about conservation and using animals also. I think there was a hawk wing underneath that cover, but that was a really, really cool opportunity that that I've used to kind of transcend how I connect with people around me. And so whenever I think about strategy and principles, I have these moments where I call extraction points. And those are the points when I have that aha or when things click to me, that's my extraction point. So as I was thinking about perspective and how we can save the environment through music, my extraction points were perspective is your perch, it's where you are seated. No matter where you are in this world, no matter what color you are, how you identify, where you come from, where you want to go, your goals, it don't matter. You have a perspective that's valuable, and all of our perspectives are needed. The issue in society comes when we don't communicate, when we don't value each other, and that goes back to principles. So yeah, that's the first extraction point. And then the second one is, how does your perspective play into activism and environmental justice? And I think that's a really, it's a easier said than done type of thing, because again, principles require us all to slow down in our head, which requires us to slow down in society. And in a world that's always moving, it's difficult to do that. But I think once we do have those extraction points in our lives, that's really when we start to connect the pieces for ourselves and be able to use that to inspire others. So justice is the second principle that I extracted from environmental justice. And I think justice is, well, the definition justice is the quality of being just, impartial, or fair. The principle or idea of just dealing or right action. And I think that justice is one of those words that it's a buzzword. It's a nice word that you can put, on a billboard, you can put it on your website and your brand and all that kind of stuff. But I think when you really, really extract the principle of what justice is, it really comes back down to value. It really just boils back down to how you value people in the real world, how you value people in corporate spaces, how you value people in the courtroom. And we, again, because as a society, as a world, we've lost what that means to really, really value someone and treat them accordingly. I think that's part of the many issues with the quote unquote justice system. The justice system we don't see it as being just because it does not have value. They don't see people as valuable beings. We don't see people as people that have value and contribute something to society. So I think in order to really be an activist in any sense of the word, in any industry, it requires you to, again, come back down to your values. So the extraction point that my aha moment with thinking about justice is, we're on the next green frontier. All of us here today have a decision on our impact. We are headed in a direction in our world where all of us are going to have to get on the green train or get left behind. And that's because of the stuff that we've done to society. It's because of the things that we've done to affect our climate, our environments, water, all of that, the ozone layer, everything. So I kind of see environmental activism as a moment to, one, as a student or as someone who works in corporate spaces, no matter what age you are, making that decision, I'm going to leave a positive impact on this world. I don't know what that's going to look like 30 years from now, but I've made a decision right now that that's what I'm going to do. The other thing I'll add with that is, I think intentions, like speaking your intentions out loud, really helps you to carry how you value people in everyday life. It could be something as simple as saying excuse me when you walk past someone, or the way that you say it. It's little things like that, to me, that build community in any space. The second extraction point I have is, what do you value? And it's such a simple thing to say out loud, but then when you really start to ask yourself that, it's like, that's a great question. What do I value? What do some of these companies value? Personal experience, this is where the guitar case comes in. The guy that made this for me, his name is Jeff Moore, and he used to run a company called ESP Guitars. That was the first guitar company I was ever endorsed with. Actually, it's that green guitar on there right now. And Jeff was a really good guy, but ESP as a culture wasn't quite open to being intentional with their inclusion when it came to getting Black women on their roster. I was one of the first, can't say the first, but I was one of the first Black women on their roster, and I was very excited because I saw an opportunity to fuse my passions with work that they're already doing by way of building guitars and bringing that on stage and building community, but also showcasing their products and showing people how all of this can kind of be done together. They didn't value me. And I really, really, really did try for years and years and years. I mean, I even included them in my logo. Like, and the relationship was very much one-sided, except for Jeff. And Jeff was that one person that that really did value me as a person. He didn't fully know me, but he saw me on LinkedIn, he saw me on social media. Every now and then we would email, and whenever I needed something for our kids programming that we do, I say, hey Jeff, I need like 2 or 3 guitars. If you can just give me one, I'll take whatever you can give me. But is there anything you all can give me to help impact the kids in the next generation? And it was always a yes. It was always a, I'm gonna just send you some stuff. And half the time I never knew what I was getting, but I think sometimes going back to value, I think sometimes we see value in quantity, and I don't think value is always in quantity, because that whole organization, that whole team of people didn't value me except for one person. And that was really all I needed. So that relationship carried over to now him working with this company called TKL Cases. And when he first got with them, he sent me an email and said, hey, I'm with this new company. If you are ever in the Virginia area, I'd love for you to swing by the factory. I just so happened to be going up there the next week, so I went by and they made this for me on the spot in the showroom. And I'm not gonna cry. I'm a very emotional person. But I don't even, you know?
They made it for you.
They made this for me on the spot. It was literally it was a sheet of paper that had my logo printed on it. And when I left that day, this is what I left with. And to me, that speaks to someone valuing me almost 10 years ago. When we're able to have that type of impact, to me, that is activism and that is environmental justice. So when you think about what does that look like in our everyday life and how we can take this into elementary schools, I was thinking about the shrine earlier.
Yeah,
but I miss the shrine. Those babies are. But value, you know. How has the lack of values and accountability had an effect on our environment and our climate? And how does that change start with you? Again, I think it goes back to value. And all of us have a platform. My mom gave me this piece last night. She said, what are you doing to inspire change through your platform? And I was like, well, I mean, everyone doesn't really do the social media thing, so maybe that's not like a platform for them. But she was like, well, I mean, everyone has a platform though. Everyone has a voice. It may not feel like, you know, you have 10,000 followers on Instagram or you paid for a verification or whatever, but it's still a platform and it inspires someone that you might never even know. But I think that when you really come to truth internally and like really figure out what your values are and how you want to put that out in the world, again, I will probably never know if someone likes one of my songs that I don't like, but they like it and it did something, so I guess my job is done. And then the last slide, or second to last slide, is activism. This is the third principle that I think of when I think of environmental justice, saving the environment with action. And that goes really good to the quote that you have on that shirt. When we're able to build community and use music and arts and technology and movies and all these kinds of things to inspire change, that's when you really get people as a community activated to do things. Activism is defined as the doctrine or practice that emphasizes direct, vigorous action, especially in support of or opposition to one side of a controversial issue. And as we're talking about environmental justice, huge controversial issue. And so the extraction points that I came out with this is, what are you going to do to inspire change? The power is in your hands. Strategy plus perspective equals sustainable success. And I think any success, no matter who you are, success is unique to us as individuals. And sustainability in that comes from being strategic with your perspective, how you value things and people, what you value, and how you put all those things to action. Even if no one shows up, or even if it's just us, to me, this is, our job has been done, your job has been done, and you did a wonderful job putting this together. So don't leave away thinking, no students came, I didn't, we're here. And it's hard enough to get people to show up in general. So the fact that we're all here and we're all like activated, thank you. Yeah, and I think the last slide, oh, that's a really cool moment, just a casual Mark Ruffalo picture. But when I was working at Greening Youth Foundation, prior to that, I was working for Captain Planet Foundation. And so we used to work together, I was always bouncing between those two organizations. But at the gala one year, I don't remember what year it was, they invited Mark Ruffalo, who is huge into environmental activism and justice. They invited him to speak, and I was given an award. I don't remember what, it was like an Environmental Stewards Award. And that was just a really, really cool moment to be able to, again, when we talk about platform, Mark Ruffalo's platform and voice, and giving me opportunity to use my voice was just a really big moment for me. And then the last slide, I love a good quote. The environment must be maintained in order to protect the survival of life in the future. And I think, again, that goes back to finding people and entities and organizations that align with your values and what you bring to the table. And I think when you put all that together, like, we're unstoppable. I think there's one more slide, actually. I think it's just a thank you. Yeah, that's it.
Woo!
Thank y'all for coming to my TED Talk.
So what does
Short version is, the short version is we work with a lot of different conservation and entertainment companies in a lot of different ways. Part of it is education, so like working with kids at Girls Rock, and we work with a lot of Girls Rock camps, and we'll teach the kids about conservation through music and film business and how they can bring sustainability to film careers or to entertainment careers. And then the second part of that is working with the manufacturing companies on the other side, like PRS Guitars and EMG Pickups. That's those two companies on my guitar. But working with them to really give back to the community by way of education. Because all of these companies have, like I mentioned earlier, Taylor Guitars is a really good example. They have, they're one of few companies that put their money where their mouth is in terms of getting property and planting the trees that they're using to build guitars, not wasting anything, but also employing people in those communities and not just taking from them. So what we do is we go in and work with those companies to build that connection, to be the bridge between communities, between kids, education, all that kind of stuff. And then the last part of that is building strategy. So I build strategy for different conservation corps. Usually it's centered around recruitment, marketing, and communications, which in my opinion they all work together. And then the last part of that is just bringing that to boards. So I work with a lot of board of directors, specifically in the Girls Rock Camp space, the Recording Academy. And recently I joined the board of my law school, Vermont Law School. And all of that is really just centered around doing stuff like this. Because they have, to the point that you made earlier, like there are so many people that are out there and do the work, but they don't actually care, and there's like no integrity in that. And you can see that when the product comes out and there's like no people of color on the billboards or the way that you market to people. So we kind of help fill those little gaps to kind of create a full picture. That was a long, I don't know how to like make that short. So that's like the short version though. Yeah.
Thank you, Gabby. That was great.
Thank y'all.
I want to know how that concert was. How did that